Welcome to the Slow Way podcast, a space where we explore slowing down, finding presence, and living intentionally. I'm Shruti, a holistic life coach and a yoga instructor, and my purpose is to help you clear out blocks that are keeping you from showing up as your best possible self. Together, we will learn to hold space for each other as we navigate through life and explore the depths of what it means to be human. Hello there. Today I have something really exciting to share. I got certified in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is such an amazing, powerful tool for personal growth and emotional well-being. And I wanted to record today's episode just sharing with you all the crux of it and just giving you an overall gist of how helpful it can be, because we all have found ourselves being stuck in patterns of negative thinking or just unhelpful behaviors. So what CBT it does is it just offers insights and tools to help us move through these things. And so I'm going to break it down into simple, actionable steps that we can apply to our daily life. So grab a cup of tea and let's get started. So the core of CBT revolves around the triangle, which is thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So let's start with that basic. CBT just centers around the idea that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected. So when we change one of these, it impacts the others. So for instance, if I have a negative thoughts, such as I always fail at this, it can create feelings of frustration and sadness. And then what happens is that these feelings then influence my behavior, and that might even lead to not trying at all. Now, on the flip side, if I change my behavior, like I'm going to try this despite of feeling uncertain or despite of not feeling confident enough, what that behavior will do is it will reduce the power of the negative thought and it will shift my emotions. So, like I mentioned earlier, shifting one of these can alter the other two. So then the goal here is to recognize these links and actively work on altering either our thoughts or behaviors to create a healthier emotional response. One core technique in CBT, which I absolutely loved, is thought challenging. And this involves examining your thoughts and questioning how accurate or how helpful are these thoughts. And here are a few different ways we can apply it, right? So say you have a negative thought pattern. You can actually challenge that, right? Because of free will, you can challenge your thoughts because thoughts are not facts. I repeat, thoughts are not facts. So always examine your thoughts. That's key. You need to begin there. So often we can catastrophize situations, expecting the worst outcomes without even considering alternatives. So in those kind of situations, ask yourself, is there evidence for that thought? Could there be any other interpretation for it? Is this thought distorted? Are there any thinking errors? Just like examining very gently. And just by challenging the thought, you're automatically taking the power away from the thought. And I found this to be so potent. So when we challenge our thoughts, we are essentially, it's like a brain workout, right? You're working on the cognitive flexibility of your thought patterns. So you're not rigid in your thought patterns because you know that it's just a thought, it's not a fact. So when you practice cognitive flexibility, this means that you're staying open to multiple perspectives and you're consciously breaking out of the all or nothing thinking. Instead of thinking, oh, I'll never succeed. How about you change that to, I may struggle at first, but with practice, I'm certain I can improve. Now, while we are on this, I want to address a very common misconception, and that is that stress is quote unquote all in your head. It's not. It's not all in my head. No, it's actually a bodily response, right? So when there is a stress response, when stress is triggered, there are chemicals triggered in the body, like cortisol and adrenaline are released in the body, and it just sets off all these physical reactions. So this process is rooted in our evolutionary need to respond to threats quickly. But now in the modern day, the stressors can cause the system to be overly sensitive. Let's just put it as a broken threat detection system, which just keeps blaring when it doesn't need to. So now, because this is all not just in your head, right? You cannot think yourself out of a stressful situation. No. We need to actively work on behavioral interpretation, meaning we focus on responding to situations differently, which can reduce the intensity of the body's stress response over time. And another tangent to this is we are trying to manage our feelings, right? We are not trying to make them go away. By no means. I think the best approach is to not to try to fix your feelings, right? Let's just begin with managing our feelings. So instead of trying to eliminate an uncomfortable emotion, CBT encourages us to accept it, first of all, and then manage it. So this approach can take some pressure off of you because you don't have to then make the feeling disappear. Rather, you learn ways to feel safer in the presence of that feeling, right? So you just need to get comfortable to just sit with that feeling and just feel safe in spite of that uncomfortable feeling. And journaling, that's where it just comes in so handy. And I'm actually working on putting together a gratitude journal with CBT prompts in it. And I think that's going to be super helpful for everybody, including me, because I think just sitting with that, with those prompts, can be super helpful. So once you start writing down your thoughts in your thought diary, and then you start to see patterns, you start to identify the triggers, and when you see those triggers, you start challenging the unhelpful thinking. And then you ask yourself questions like, is this thought helping me or harming me? And like, how could I look at this differently, right? So questioning yourself, examining those thoughts, and reminding yourself that thoughts are safe. It's just a mental experience that you're having. Your thoughts are not threats. They're not facts either. So it's just a mental experience. And when you start to see it like that, this simple shift helps to reduce the power of distressing thoughts, because you just, by challenging them, by examining them and putting the spotlight on them, you suddenly took away the power from these negative thoughts or unhelpful thought patterns. Coming back to the point that you cannot think your way out of a problem. So the reprogramming has to happen through action. So to truly make a change, it's helpful to put ourselves in situations that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. So just gradually, just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That will just build resilience. And by doing these things differently, you create new experiences and different emotional responses. So if you avoid a situation due to anxiety, try a small interaction that can help you just rewire your mind to see these situations as less threatening and more acceptable. So just engaging in alternate actions when you're triggered, alternate emotional responses when you're triggered, because you actually have the power. You do have the power to have a more healthier emotional response and not act just react based off of core beliefs that you never questioned. And the more you practice this, the more you're telling your hindbrain, which is your fight or flight response brain, that don't worry about it. I have coping mechanisms to help deal with this. So no, you don't have to just kick into action just yet. We're fine, So just like calming the hindbrain and just using more of the frontal brain and choosing a different response. And with practice, we can rewire our automatic responses to stressors. I mentioned a term, thinking traps, and I want to elaborate a little bit on that. And so a thinking trap essentially is a way of thinking that distorts reality. And some of the very common ones could be the all or nothing thinking, right? So viewing things in black and white. If I don't succeed, that means I'm a complete failure, right? So it's just like swinging between these two extremes. Or say, for instance, mind reading, just assumptions, just assuming that we know what the other person is thinking, which can just lead to anxiety and just misinterpretation. It's always better to take your negative thoughts with a pinch of salt and challenge them and sit with them and not take them as facts. And with some of these tools and techniques, what happens is that you start moving forward with all these techniques in your tool belt, right? And a big part of CBT is that it's about shifting from this label that you have pasted upon yourself. Oh, I'm an anxious person, or I'm a sad person, or I'm just always grumpy. Or so instead of labeling yourself, how about we tackle that issue actively and targeting specific problems? So then my role here would be to create a collaborative effort between you and me, allowing us to co-construct solutions tailored to your unique challenges. What is getting in the way of success, or what is stopping you? What beliefs, what anxieties, or what fears? What is it that is stopping you? And CBT offers so many practical strategies for transforming how we experience and respond to challenges in our lives. And remember that lasting change comes from small, consistent steps. One day at a time, one step at a time. And if you're interested in exploring how these principles could work for you personally, I invite you to book a discovery call with me. We can unpack any baggage that you're carrying, and we can just co-construct and develop personalized strategies together. Thank you so much for joining today. If this episode resonated, please consider sharing it with your friends or family, whoever you think would benefit from it, or even consider leaving a comment. It just helps others find the show, and I would personally love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining me on this journey of growth. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.